here's the truth about success. It's often really unsexy. And as a result, it doesn't get reported on. And as a result of that, a lot of people don't know that that's the reality, which is that it's unsexy and it takes a while.
Let's impact some men today. I think we're going to do a great job.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Modern Man Podcast, where we connect men in pursuit of their potential. Join us as we embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. If you're ready to take your personal and professional growth to the next level, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to check out the Noble Knights Mastermind group, where you'll find the support, accountability, and mentorship you need to achieve your goals. Join us and become a part of a community of like-minded men on a mission to improve themselves and elevate their capacity for life. We're getting a little bit of wind in our sails today from our guest out of Poland. Welcome, Edward Sturm. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, that's a great introduction, dude. I'm so hyped to be on this podcast and to talk about being a man.
Yeah.
This is actually one of my favorite topics. We were right before this, we were talking about the way of the superior man, which is if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't read that book, you're going to hate me for saying this, but pause the podcast, read that book, and then come back to the podcast, because that book is so critical to being a man. It's so I read that book when I was 25 and I was going through a failing relationship. I was being broken up with, which is a horrible feeling. Mm-hmm. And that book explained to me why I was being broken up with. And I read it too late to it was too little too late in that relationship. But then after I read that, I never had a relationship where someone wanted to break up with me. It was always I was always the one who chose. And it was because of what I learned in that book. It's just it's not just about relating to a significant other. It's relating to the world. It's relating to your work. It's relating to your family and your partner and your friends. It's like the most important book on being a man. And it's cool that it's one of your favorite books as well.
I put out a list every year, the top X amount of books every man should read for the X year. So this year was the top 23 books every man should read in 2023 to up their growth. And that's one of them. And, it's one of the staples in the collection, right? And part of, being a modern man is being well-read, educated, and understanding self and relationships with others. But Edward, man, I want to make sure that the audience, the watchers on YouTube, the guests that are the audience that's listening, I want to give you guys an opportunity to get acquainted. So take the floor really quick, introduce yourself and tell us where you're from, what you do, and then we can kind of get into the nitty gritty. Because I failed to mention entrepreneur, self-improvement fanatic, world traveler, taking the time out of Poland to be with us. So please let the folks know who you are, man.
Yeah. So I'm Edward Sturm. You can find me on Twitter at Show Progress. I like to show progress, and that's my handle on Twitter. Or I'm really active on TikTok. I've been posting. I'm really big on doing things every day for years and seeing a long-term vision. So 140 days ago, I said, I'm going to post every day on TikTok. I'm going to make videos about my startups and about what I'm doing for my businesses and what I'm learning about tech and marketing and things that I'm doing for my companies. And so I post 2 to 4 videos a day doing that. And now I'm up to 23,000 followers. The handle it's Build in Public on TikTok. And I recently had the most viewed video in the world on the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. I made a video explaining the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. It was Bing AI chat explaining the collapse in monkey banana terms using monkey banana speech. And it's a really funny video. I got it from a viral thread on Twitter. And actually that guy who wrote it, we became friends, and he responded to the video, and it went super viral. I think it's up to 4.2 million views.
Nice.
And And I get those things because I'm just focused on, it's okay if you fail on day 1, 2, 3, whatever. If you keep trying something, you'll eventually make it. And so, you can find me on TikTok at Build in Public, Twitter, Show Progress, Instagram, edward.builds. And so my story, so I'm one of the first, I guess I'm one of the first viral video creators on YouTube. I was making viral videos there. I was one of the first people doing it. I've had like hundreds of millions of views on my videos. And while I was doing that, I was also working at New York City nightclubs. I was promoting at like the biggest clubs in the world, seeing like people like Leonardo DiCaprio every night and having drinks with like Busta Rhymes, stuff like that. It was like crazy. And then I wanted to get into tech. All my friends from nightlife were getting into tech, and I didn't understand the value of long-term persistence. So I didn't stick with like YouTube because I just know I didn't even understand where YouTube would go, like what it would become. And so I got into SEO and I became, I guess, like one of the best search engine optimizers in the world. I've done SEO for Microsoft, ADP, Procter & Gamble, Time Inc., big companies and lots of SMBs. I got into blockchain and I ran the biggest blockchain meetup in the world. And me and my friends, we created the first play to earn game in crypto. So we literally made like the first real video game in crypto. It was wild. We made like $1 million in under 48 hours. This was in 2018. And then we lost all of it because we were young and immature. And when we launched the game, the price of Ether was at $1,400. And by the time we released the game, it was like at 80. It was like, that's a crazy story. And, now I have like a voice startup that's getting new customers every day. It's called Reverb. I post the statistics about it on Twitter. So we have like 120 customers. We get like 2 to 4 customers every day. We'll probably increase that dramatically over the next couple of weeks because we're putting in all these iterations. Yeah. And I'm writing a lot on my website, edwardsturm.com, writing a ton about like what I'm learning. And then I have this other project called Commit Club, which incentivizes you to maintain a daily habit by like staking crypto or staking cash, or it could be like credit card too, staking cash or having your friends hold you accountable. But the point is to do something every day. So you say like, okay, I'm going to meditate for the next 30 days in a row. And my friends are going to get a notification if I'm about to miss a day, and then they can keep you accountable. Or I'm going to put $100 down on this, and if I miss a day, I lose my money. Wow. And so we have that project too. Man,
I've been meaning to tell you, Edward. I really think you should stop being lazy and start doing some things out there. Bro.
Yeah, I gotta get out of the house. I don't know. So
right? No, dude, that's amazing. Everything that you've done, everything that you're doing, and continue to do it. I mean, we weren't even 5 minutes in, and I already was writing down notes. One thing about seeing a long-term vision that you mentioned, and kind of,
dude, that's been the biggest mistake in my life. That's like in my early, when you're in your early 20s, you kind of just want to do everything. You want to have the craziest, busiest, like craziest life that you can. And what you don't realize is that the craziness actually comes from sticking with something. And like the most successful people that I know, they saw something out for at least a few years. And it's like after I have this thing now called the 2-year rule. And you just gotta expect like that there's a good chance you might not get any traction within your first 2 years, but after 2 years, you'll get a lot of traction. And after 5 years, you'll be set. And then like after 10 years, if you really stick with it, like you'll be like 100 millionaire or more. Yeah. And that's what I've realized now in like the wisdom of age. That's what I've realized now. It's really just, you get the craziest opportunities when you understand a market, when you understand a skill, and when you have top of mind awareness in that market, and then you get the craziest opportunities.
How do you find the kind of where those three collide? For anybody that's listening, they might think to themselves, man, I don't know what's going on. You've been able to do so much. How do you identify those three things? Understanding the market, need, how you fit in it, and things like that.
This is going to sound wildly cliche, and but it's just what it is. Like, you gotta since you're going to be doing something for a long time, it needs to be something that you're very interested in. I don't want to say passionate about, that's too generic, but it does have to be something that you're really interested in, something that you want to learn more about, that you can read about, that you can do all day, that you find very fun, that you find very interesting, and understand that you're going to be doing that for a couple of years. And that's like, so it's like, it could be gaming. Like, it could be gaming on Twitch. It could be gaming on YouTube. It could be reviewing movies. It could be making images, and now you're making images with AI, and before you were doing it with Photoshop and photography. There are all sorts of things. Yeah. But you got to stick with something for a while, and put yourself out there. Put yourself out there as well. I think if you go hard putting yourself out there, it takes like 6 months to develop a monetizable audience. And yeah. And then, like, beyond those 6 months, like years into the future, this is like one of my favorite phrases in the world that I tell everyone, and everyone knows it. And I don't care. I keep saying it, but like, everyone overestimates what they can do in 2 weeks and underestimates what they can do in 2 years. Yeah. And yeah, 100%. I'm sure you've heard that before. I'm sure everyone listening has heard that before, but it's just, we forget it. We so often confuse the forest for the trees. So often. All right, enough with the platitudes. But yeah, that's.
I love it, because you've been able to do so many serious things. You mentioned companies like Microsoft, Procter and Gamble, doing SEO work for them or whatnot, but also with, hey, I got the most viral TikTok video with, was it AI talking in monkey talk with the banana? But like, so there's this duality to you, which I love, man, which is, you're doing these serious things. Because when people think Procter and Gamble and Microsoft, they think, button up and whatnot, but you're also like, and I have this social where I did this awesome viral video, which was cool. How do you clash the two together? And how do you have, I guess, the duality of doing these serious things, but also not taking yourself too seriously, as so many people tend to do?
Actually, so when we made, it's really funny. I had a friend visiting me here in Warsaw, in Poland, and his career is now like blowing up more than it's ever blown up. And he was doing something that I was doing in 2018. So in 2018, that's when we had a crypto game that blew up, and I was getting recognized. I was going to conferences and people were recognizing me. And I started taking myself too seriously. And that for my dating life, that year was terrible, because no one finds someone who takes themselves too seriously attractive. And it was okay. It was good for like social life, because everyone wants to be friends with a winner. And I was winning then, but like, I think relationships are very important, and it's hard to have a healthy relationship and to relate to the people that you're attracted to when you take yourself too seriously. And so, I guess what happened? I went to Europe and I had no friends in Europe. So I needed to start making new friends. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to talk to people and I'll crack a few eggs, but that's the only way to make what is it? That's the only way to make an omelet. I think that's the same.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, like things will be uncomfortable at first. And then when I was the most smooth person during my New York City nightlife days. And then during this game, I took myself too seriously. I was overworked, and I was just working myself way too hard. And so, yeah, I get to Europe and I need to make more new friends. And so I'm just like, whatever, like, I kind of have this belief that if I just stick to something, I can do anything. So I'm like, yeah, if I just like talk to people every day in like 30 days, I really like 30-day challenges. So I'm like, I'll do this for 30 days in a row. And if I miss a day, I have to give my friend money or something like that. And that's why we created Commit Club off that like premise. But so how do I not take myself too seriously? I fail a lot. And yeah, and so the story with my friend is, my friend's career is blowing up, and he came to visit me, and he was taking himself way too seriously because his career was blowing up as well. And he was tight, and he was nervous, and he felt like he was too cool for like to meet new people, and he even realized it, and now he's working on it. And so I guess it's just the awareness of why someone might take themselves too seriously, and also the awareness that if someone doesn't like you, it doesn't matter, because other people will.
Yeah.
And by putting myself out there, I'm able to not take myself very seriously. That's like the real way to do it. You just gotta talk to people, and
just be yourself. Kind of just put yourself out there. Say, hey, this is me.
Being yourself is really hard if you have social anxiety. It's like crushingly difficult if you have social anxiety. You can't do it. In fact, I'll say that you can't be yourself if you have social anxiety. That's the definition of it, because the anxiety gets in the way. And the thing about social anxiety that a lot of people don't realize is that it's like, or the lack of social anxiety is a muscle like any other, and it gets stronger when you practice, when you talk to people more. The more you talk to people, the more you meet new people, the more you become comfortable with someone not liking you, then you don't feel the anxiety, and you can actually be yourself. And a lot of people, when they're fully themselves, people really love them. People love them so much. Because I used to feel a lot of social anxiety. And I remember I would think, man, I wish I could just act the way that I'm acting with my friends, but with these like new people. And that was something that I thought a lot. And then with practice, I was able to do that.
Yeah. I want to go back to when you referenced the book Waves of the Superior Man, and you said you were getting broken up with at the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What is the difference between the Edward then and the Edward now?
Oh man, that was a weak man. 25-year-old. That was a strong man who became a weak man. And I'll tell you what happened. So I had these viral videos. I didn't even realize at the time, I was such a dumb kid. I didn't realize that I could make money with YouTube. I didn't realize I could do like daily vlogging.
Yeah.
And I was working in nightlife, and all of my friends, you don't make a lot of money working in New York City nightlife. And all of my friends were getting into tech. And I kind of realized that I needed to switch out of nightlife. And this girl that I was dating, she was and still is, she's amazing. She's an amazing person. And so she was still going out to these clubs. We met in like the clubs, and she was meeting like famous people every night, like Leo and Knicks players and football players, all other people. And I was this confused kid who didn't know what he was doing with his life, and who felt insecure because technology was a new wave. I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about tech. I didn't know anything about finance. And I was really insecure about it. And she was meeting all these people who weren't insecure. They were crushing it in their careers, and they were older and they knew a lot. And I was 25. Like a lot of people, a lot of men, when they're 25, they're not men, they're boys.
Yeah. And still figuring it out.
Still figuring it out. We're all figuring it out. And maybe in 10 years from now, I'll be like, yeah, that kid, that guy, that was a little boy.
Yeah.
But I felt really insecure. And I think that's the most, I don't want to ruin it for people who are insecure, but I felt insecure, and she wasn't attracted to that. And and she was very generous and gave me a lot of months, but I just I was too insecure about my future and about what I was doing and about where my friends were and where I was in life, and about like, I'm not a Knicks player. I'm not Leo. And that's why I got broken up with. And that's why, like, now I have I have very high self-esteem. I have a lot of positive reference experiences that tell me I'm pretty cool. And
you're right.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm all right. I also, I have a lot of positive reference experiences. And I've been meditating every day for the last like 12 years as well. That's like helped. I think meditation is very important. Exercising is very important. So I've been doing that for the last 12 years as well.
I love that you said I was a weak man, and you reference that into being insecure, because I think that's so true. A lot of people think that when we talk about weak man, strong man, we're talking about, examples
Muscles.
of strength and muscles. And, that's not always the case. When you talk about a strong man, it's more of a secure man, right?
Yeah.
And kind of what you're saying is, you're like, I have my daily practices, I meditate, and, I have my routines, I work out, and I have the foundation that gives me the confidence in who I am. Because I think you're right. I think the attractiveness when we look for a spouse is that spouse is looking for certainty, right? I said a while ago,
it's really true. It's really true.
I tweeted that, boys are confident, men are certain. And what I'm certain about is I'm certain about my direction. I'm not certain about where I'm going to be, but I'm certain in the direction.
Me neither. But I'm certain my direction.
Yeah, man. And I think that's where the comfort in a spouse comes. It's like if you're on a plane and the pilot's like, welcome on board. I think we're going to be heading to, you're like, oh man, get me off this flight. Right. Yeah. But the pilot's all smooth. He's like, oh, we're going to be cruising at 30,000 feet. Destination is 72 degrees right now. It's going to be a smooth, I'm going to get you there. When the pilot says, I'm going to get you there, you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Be the pilot that gets someone there, right? For the guys that are listening that might be insecure, I think it's important not for us to quote unquote focus on physical strength alone, but I think it's important for us to focus on direction. Where are we going? What are we building? What are we working towards? That's why I love what you talked about with the long-term vision and what was it? It was the commit
club.
The commit club.
Yeah.
I love that because you have the accountability set up. Talk a little bit more about that, like the accountability, because so many of us, we build a reputation on what we're going to do, right? But we never actually pony up the money or tell our friend what we're thinking. Lead into that accountability.
Dude, I have like a bunch of daily challenges going right now that I've literally pledged money on using my own app. So if I fail, I lose the money. One is a no-fap challenge. I'm huge. The longest I went was with no-fap. I was living in Kiev, and I was oh man, I guess there's very little chance of anyone of the girl that I'm seeing listening. But I was, oh man, should I say this?
Say it for the listeners and the viewers.
I'll say for So I was dating all these girls at the time, and I just kind of I just kind of thought that I would be like a better lover.
I feel that.
Should I have said that? But I had a lot of relationships, and I thought I would be a better lover if I stopped masturbating. And because my rationale in this was, if I couldn't make myself orgasm and I had to get it from my partners, I would appreciate them a lot more. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. I started appreciating them a lot more. And I was kind of a dick before.
Yeah.
To be honest. And then I turned into someone who, like, everyone who I dated after this period, I'm friends with. They are my friends. We talk, we see how we're doing. I have a girlfriend now, and I'm monogamous now. But I have, like, no one dislikes me. Whereas in my early 20s, when I was going out to these clubs and working these clubs, I don't talk to those people, most of them, and they just think I'm an asshole. And
do you think it's the difference of the relationships in terms of, like, how you showed up? Because I do think there's a lot to say in terms of being like honest, open, transparent, and just like, listen, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm in for. This is what my expectations are in this relationship.
That as well. I don't lie. I don't lie in relationships. I'm huge into that. I'm huge into not lying. I think it just creates a lot of problems. It creates a lot of open threads that you got to remember. And it's so much healthier to not lie. So I don't lie. If there's something that I don't want to talk about it, I don't talk about it. or I make jokes like, why are you asking these things? I like, don't ask these things. I'll be like that, but I don't talk. But I don't openly like flagrantly lie. I don't do that. Mm-hmm. And I guess the other thing is I'm like, you know, in my early 20s, I didn't know what type of person I wanted. And now, because I've had a bunch of relationships that didn't work out, I know what I want in a partner. I have all these check boxes on what I want. What?
Clarity. You get clarity.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. It's so important. And I don't even go out to nightclubs anymore. I'm just kind of tired of that. And here in Warsaw, like, well, I have a girlfriend, so it doesn't even matter. But even before I met this girl in Barcelona when I was living there, and she's there, and I'll go back to Barcelona soon, so we can be together. So when I was in Barcelona, I wasn't even doing nightlife. There's great nightlife in Barcelona. I was in Rome before that. I wasn't doing it there as well. And I kind of just have like a more sustainable approach to dating now than I did when I was in my early 20s.
How have you chosen where to move around? Where, I mean, you're a world traveler. You've lived in different countries. Do you kind of go with the flow? Do you kind of follow kind of this specific path that you're going around the world? Or are you kind of just picking different countries and testing them out, seeing what you think, and just kind of being a nomad?
I really like safe countries that are really easy to live in, that have good infrastructure. Believe it or not, Kiev was all of these things. Kiev is my second favorite city in the world. I'm from Brooklyn. New York City is my favorite city. Home is my favorite place. And Kiev is my second favorite city. Actually, everything about it was amazing. So I like, you know, it's crazy. Like here in Warsaw, I can walk around with like my phone in my hand, lightly gripping it, and my head turned and not give an F, like not care, because it's so safe here. No one's going to jack my phone. Nice. And in Barcelona, there's a much higher chance of that happening. In South America, from what I've heard, I've never been to South America, so this is only from what I've heard. And sorry if I'm wrong, but I heard that there's a good chance that you'll have something stolen. Mm-hmm. And but I never had to worry about that in the places that I live.
What got you started to travel? Like what was the, like, I mean, because you're doing nightlife and you're in New York, you're transitioning into tech, and you're like, let's go.
The nightlife was like 5 years before I started traveling. But I started traveling because I had this game blow up, and it was my first like really big success. And so I was in New York for, I think, a year and a quarter after that. So 1.25 years. And then one of my co-founders for that game, he went to Europe, and I was always the kid who never left New York. I had a lot of friends travel, and they would leave and they would go live abroad. And I'm like, no, why would I do that? New York has everyone and everything. That's what I would tell everyone. New York has everyone and everything. Why would I leave? And then I was like turning 30, and this co-founder went to Germany. And so I'm like, you know, I'm turning 30. I should see what else is out there. And my friend and my co-founder is doing it, so I'll do it too. And I thought I would be gone for like 4 to 6 months. And then I turned it into a year because I was just really enjoying it. And I was living in Kiev when COVID happened. And I had actually a flight booked back to New York before COVID. I had booked a flight back to New York. So I was going to go home after a year. And COVID happened, and I had to make a decision. Should I board an emergency flight back to New York, or should I stay in Kiev? And I chose Kiev. I think it was the right decision. And I ended up living in Kiev for 2 years. And then last year was supposed to be a year of like crazy stability. I got a lease in Kiev starting in January. And then I had to leave. I actually left on Valentine's Day of last year because the war fears were mounting. Mm-hmm. And I was going to return. The war started. I couldn't return. And so I had to, you know, what's dictated a lot of where I've lived, actually, I'll tell you, it's the Schengen rules. So A lot of Americans don't even know what the Schengen area is, but it's basically like the biggest countries in Europe belong to the Schengen area. So that's like France, Germany, Spain, Italy, like just the biggest, most notable countries in Europe.
Yeah,
belong to Schengen.
Schengen rules.
Yeah. So there's Schengen visa rules. And so as an American, you can just go to Europe, which is like when people say Europe, what they really mean is Schengen. So you can go to Schengen, these big countries that I just mentioned, and you can stay for a maximum of 90 days out of 180 days. And so I would go to different places and I would get really comfortable, and then I'd have to leave because of these rules. And a lot of countries have similar rules, like countries in the Baltics, they have like 90 days out of 180 days. So I like the stability, but then I always have to leave. And it turns out, I didn't know this at the time, but actually the United States has agreements with a lot of countries where if you do specific things, you can stay in that country for more than 90 days. But I didn't realize that at the time. And so, so I moved around a lot because I had to, so I wouldn't overstay my visa.
What have you learned in your travels? What would you say you wish you could teach some of our listeners, our viewers, maybe a young Edward from the travels?
Oh, dude, I would have told young Edward to start doing it immediately. Like, a lot of people think living abroad is really expensive. It's actually the opposite. Living in the United States is really expensive. Especially like, I don't know, how is it where you are, like compared to like a city like New York or something, or Miami?
Comparable. It's cheaper.
Yeah,
it's
comparable?
cheaper, but it's comparable. It's getting up there, man.
It's
getting up there.
Yeah. So, even main countries in Europe, like even Italy, you might pay for a nice apartment. Like, okay, for a really nice 1-bedroom apartment in Barcelona, really nice, like newly renovated with modern appliances, you'll pay $1,200 in Barcelona. No, that's truth. $1,200. And
you couldn't get that in Charlotte.
Yeah. And in New York, the same apartment would go for, in the same location, the same apartment would probably go for like 5 or 6 a month. Yeah. So people really don't realize like just how much money you actually save living in Europe. That's number one. Number two is, and that's specific with the traveling thing, but like number two is like, I just kind of believe that anyone can make it on their own. If you want it, not everyone wants it.
Yeah. Expand on that.
Well, not everyone wants it. I know plenty of people who have had full-time jobs working for other people for a long time, and they're really comfortable doing that. And that's fine. I keep pressuring them, try to work remote, because I just think being in Europe is so great. But I do believe that if you want to make it on your own, you can. Maybe you'll need to work part-time or full-time and do something on the side. Maybe you'll need to. But if you actually here's what most people do when they work a full-time job. They're tired and they don't have anything outside of work that really excites them, that really gets into their body and excites them. And so what they do is after work, they go and they have a drink, or they go and they watch Netflix. And that's what they do. Or maybe they work all the time and all they have is like weekends off. And then that's what they do. And so the whole thing about work on what gets you excited is, if you're working on something that truly excites you, it actually doesn't feel like work. And everyone says this, but everyone says this, but it's really like, the market is so big, you can make money off in so many different ways, in so many different niches. Like, I was listening to a podcast. I was listening yesterday, and there was a guy who was talking about, he literally he either does it himself or he has an agency, and he just cleans up dog poop from lawns when snow melts. And he makes $300,000 a year doing that, just cleaning dog poop off lawns.
Nice.
And it's increasing year over year because he just started building an SEO funnel for it.
Some might call that a crappy job, but the pay's not
Some
crappy.
might call it a crappy job. Yo.
I couldn't help it. Those low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Oh man, no, I love that because I think that's so true. There's a lot of people who have identified what they might be interested in, but they just dabble or they didn't start. Or some people might have identified where, okay, I'm home from work, but I just don't have the time, Ted, or man, I'm just tired, Ted. And I'm like, listen, no disrespect, but I've been up since 2:20 this morning. I'm sitting here on a podcast with you. You're in Poland. It's nighttime over here. It's 2:46 in the afternoon. I've been up for over 12 hours, worked a full shift, got a workout in, did a school talk.
That's amazing.
Even coming home, I'm sitting down like, okay, I got this podcast with
Edward. What's up.
I got another one after this. So like,
wow, that's what's up. Actually, I'm curious, do you do cold exposure or Wim Hof breathing or anything?
I do. So I do Wim Hof breathing. I have an ice barrel. I have the CEO of Ice Barrel on the podcast. You should check that out on YouTube and all your platforms. But I had the CEO of Ice Barrel on the podcast, got myself an ice barrel, and I love it. I use that all the time. I actually did a community ice plunge with some friends, which was the coldest ice plunge that I've ever done. We had like an inch of ice on the water, and we did 5 minutes each. But it's about building mental fortitude because kind of what you said, when you're interested in something, it's not going to feel like work, but you're also going to encounter some things around what you like doing that you don't want to do. Right. So like podcasting is great, but you got to edit the audio. You got to write the show notes. You have to do all the things on the back end, market it, post it. Not everything's going to be your favorite part of it. And then when you get to a certain aspect, a certain level, you could outsource some things, right? And you could focus on what you like. But I keep telling people, it's like, find something. I don't care what it is. If you like it, if you're passionate and you're interested in it, just lean in and see what happens and start just engrossing yourself in that niche, man.
I think the other thing that I failed to mention is it's really motivating when you actually have like a long-term vision for how big whatever it is that you're doing can get. I think that's really so. Something that I realized is that like it's never easier to wake up early and to get very little sleep when things are going your way, when your business is doing well and your relationships are solid, and you have like positive metrics on whatever you're doing. And it's never harder, conversely, to get out of bed when you're confused and when progress is taking slower than you thought. And in those times, it's really easy to lose your vision, to lose track of like why you're doing this in the first place and what you imagined this turning into. And then it becomes like a downward spiral. And actually, one of my favorite tools is stream of consciousness journaling, where what's one of my favorite. That's something that I wish I could have given to my younger self, is stream of consciousness journaling.
Is that the one habit you would probably recommend people do? I had that down as a question. I'm just making sure.
That's up there. I mean, I do so many weird habits. I eat raw garlic every morning.
Makes your nostrils go.
Oh, yeah, it does. It's great. It's great. And so that's another thing. Also, this is a crazy thing, and my girlfriend doesn't think this is the case, but I don't believe her. I think raw garlic is an aphrodisiac. I think raw garlic, I really think that. I think I had some experiences, which I won't talk about on the podcast, that suggest that raw garlic is an aphrodisiac. And I'm going to explain why. It's because biologically, we are attracted to signs of health. And raw garlic really is like one of the healthiest things that you can eat. And it's antibacterial, it's antiviral. It promotes healthy flora in your gut. It's like when I started doing raw garlic, I stopped getting sick. I really got sick so much less than I was before.
Nice.
And It's so good. And so I think it's an aphrodisiac because it smells really strong and it's a sign of health.
I love it. What do you use, or how do you stay on top of like the trends and everything? Because it's almost like from YouTube to blockchain, TikTok, you seem very in tune on like where things are going. You even mentioned the use in your TikTok video of AI, which is big. And we only have a few minutes left on the podcast because I know we could probably do a whole podcast on AI.
Dude, I'm just getting into it now. Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem. So that's actually a lot of people, they want to jump around. They want to do what's hot. And I think that's actually a mistake.
Correct.
I think that's a huge mistake. I think, figure out, it's like, again, like figure out what you love. And maybe if you're doing something within the realm of what you love, it's okay. But if you're building a brand, I think keep building that brand. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants to jump from like the metaverse to NFTs to AI. And it's just, if you actually stick with something, you'll most likely make way more money than you would if you jumped around to all these things and wasted all these time trying to get a flash in the pan success that would turn into something bigger. Linear growth is a lot easier to achieve than a huge explosive growth. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, from my experience. But I love, there's this 10-minute podcast that I listen to every day called The Hustle. Mm-hmm. By this guy, Sam Parr. Yeah, it's great. And so that keeps me on point. I listen to the All In podcast. Mm-hmm. I'm very fascinated by this stuff as well. So that helps. And I think a strength that I have is I'm just not afraid to look stupid. So I'll ask dumb questions. Yeah. And it's amazing, when you're willing to ask dumb questions, it's amazing how many people don't actually know the answers themselves to the things they're talking about. Because like you will ask, like people will be saying something and they'll use like a big word. And you think that they know what they're talking about because they're using this big word. But actually they're using this big word because they heard it from somebody else and they want to seem smart. And since you are comfortable with yourself, you will ask them what it means and they won't be able to explain it. Mm-hmm. And then you end up looking very smart because you're like, I actually think the smartest people are the ones who are like, I don't know what that means. Like, can you explain that? So yeah, by asking questions, I think, I'm tuned in pretty well. And I think it's like a universal, like other smart people recognize that somebody else is smart when they can ask questions.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you have to ask those questions because, I mean, like I said, I did a school talk earlier and some of those kids ask the most intuitive questions. And I'm like, man, you guys are amazing. Really quick, is we only have a couple more minutes, but I wanted to know, what is your biggest failure?
My biggest failure is not sticking with things. So okay, our crypto game did well, but we lost all that money and we got out too soon. Like we got out when the price of ETH was $1,400 when we launched. It was $80 by the time we got the game out, and we didn't use that money to develop the game. We kept it in the smart contract until we actually got the game out. But by the time we had the money, it was like virtually worthless. And now
it's 1,700 as of recording.
Yeah, we turned a lot of it to cash, and the companies that launched after us, which were inspired by us, literally they like jacked elements from our landing page, like literally just CSS. They like took icons and language, all these things. So some of those companies ended up being multi-billion-dollar companies. Wow. And they launched after us doing the same thing we did and doing a much poorer job than us. My biggest failure is just not sticking with things. Like I look at where I could have been. I've done okay in life. I think I've had a very impressive life for sure. Mm-hmm. But something that I regret is that I've bounced around so much, to be honest. And I look at like what I could have done with YouTube, and I could have done daily vlogging and turned into like a Casey Neistat type character. I could have stuck with the SEO stuff instead of getting into blockchain and turned into like someone like Neil Patel. We could have stuck with the blockchain game and turned that into the multi-billion-dollar companies that I mentioned. And we were impatient, and we didn't know that success can take a long time. And we looked at the companies that got it fast and not at the companies that got it slow, because here's the truth about success. It's often really unsexy. And as a result, it doesn't get reported on. And as a result of that, a lot of people don't know that that's the reality, which is that it's unsexy and it takes a while, and you got to be patient. And so now what I'm doing with all of my businesses, with everything that I'm doing, is I'm being patient, and I know that I'm going to keep at them for years. And I know that if I do that, some crazy things will happen. And let me tell you this, with TikTok as like a perfect example, I said 2 to 4, but some days I was making 8. I made like 2 to 8 TikToks every day before I had my first viral video. And then it was like a hockey stick growth up. Yeah. And I went from like, in a matter of 5 days, it was day 85 of posting consistently. And I was at like 1,400 followers. And 5 days later, I was at 7,000 followers. Yeah. And now I'm on day like 140, and I'm at 23,000 followers. Yeah. And so people you seem like you're a loser until you're not. Yep. And people don't get it, man. And that's my biggest failure.
Everybody loves to talk about Ed Sheeran being picked up on the street corner and then selling out arenas within a year, but they don't talk about the years he spent honing his craft as a musician, right? Yeah. And it's like, okay, you can get
practicing
discovered.
And failing, and
that's what it's all about. And you're so right, because success does take time. And I'm thinking more and less in seasons of my life. A lot of times people graduate and they're like, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? And like, I don't know. It's like, no, seasons in terms of what do you want to do for the next 10 years?
Yeah,
maybe that's exactly less.
That's exactly it. 10 years, even it could even be like 3 years, because I think on year two, if you really go hard for like 2 years, by year 2, you'll have like a really good idea and some solid traction. And by like year 3, you'll be like pretty good. And then by year 5, I actually think you can like have like really just like a ton of money. Yeah. And then 10 years is like a no-brainer. And then after that, maybe you get bored and you switch to something else, like you said. Yeah.
So before we wrap up, brother, I want to ask really quick how folks can connect with you, get in contact with you, and follow some of the amazing work that you're doing. And of course, have the access to Reverb and Commit Club and all of your projects.
Yeah. Please reach out. I love talking to people. As you can tell, I really love to talk to people. Yeah. My website has all my links, edwardsturm.com. Okay. Or you can, it has like everything, like LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok. But my Twitter is Show Progress. This is a new Twitter that I started, and it's growing a lot faster than my old Twitter. And it's more fun because like I have all of my TikToks actually go to that Twitter. So Twitter, I'm there at Show Progress. On TikTok, Build in Public is my handle, and Instagram, Edward Builds. Those are like my main, and LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn too. It's more of a professional thing, but hit me up there if you want. Hit me up. I love talking to people.
Yeah. I'll have those links in the show notes for everybody. And of course, I'll be sure to have them connect right by clicking those links. Last question, Edward. This is usually a heavy one, so I appreciate the authentic responses. You've been authentic this whole episode. I appreciate that. But it's what's something you've seen or something that's happened to you that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
Being broken up with when I was 25. That experience told me like what I need to have my North Star on, and that really shaped the world. That shaped the way that I see the world as a man. Being broken up with at 25 and reading The Way of the Superior Man and understanding immediately why I was broken up with and what I did wrong. Mm-hmm. And it made things a lot clearer. That was the experience for sure.
Trajectory for sure. No, yeah. I love it, brother. Thank you, man. Edward Sturm out of Poland. This did not disappoint, brother. We went the gambit with this one. We went the whole time. So I appreciate you being authentic and sharing with the audience. I'm going to recap really quick some of the things you said, because we covered a lot in a lot of different topics, but seeing a long-term vision, that tended to be like the underlying theme, yes, right? Of seeing a long-term vision. We start somewhere, doing something, committing to something every day, or a 30-day challenge. And it's okay if you fail. Eventually you'll make it. I loved when you said that. That was within the first 5 minutes. Like, it's okay if you fail. Eventually you'll make it if you stick with it. Give it 2 years, 2 to 3 years, then 5 years. If you stick with it for 10, you'd be amazed at where you're going. And start with something that you're interested in. Don't just do anything. When you get out of work, that day job, you feel drained because you haven't found that thing that you can't stop thinking about or that you're passionate about. And then fail a lot. Don't take yourself so seriously. Put yourself out there. That's another way. And if you go hard putting yourself out there for 6 months, you could build a monetizable audience. And I was a weak man, meaning insecure. Man, yeah. How many of us at a young age were insecure, and because of that, we behaved as many would describe as toxic, right?
Yes,
we behaved in insecure ways, competitive against others, not thinking about abundance, and kind of putting others down instead of lifting them up. That's what happens when you're insecure. You're acting in weakness, not in your strength, which is where you are certain. You are certain of the direction, not the destination, not exactly where you're going, but you are certain of the direction and the habits that you've established and the routines that you've implemented into your life. And then being a better lover. How can we be a better lover? There's a lot of things, a lot of habits that some of us might have by doing away with, and maybe even using the Commit Club as a little bit of an incentive could help you get to that level. And then, of course, choosing where to live. It's cheaper to live abroad. The Schengen rules is what really dictated a lot of Edward's travel. And then if you want it bad enough, you could do it. You can make it on your own if you want it. You just have to have the vision of how big what you are doing can get to get you through those slow days. And then raw garlic is one of those weird habits Edward talked about. I love it, which he said is an aphrodisiac. And then don't jump around, stick with one thing, and not sticking one thing being the biggest failure, because imagine how successful we could be if we stuck to that one thing. And don't be afraid to ask dumb questions. Edward, man, we ran the gambit with all the value on this one.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah,
we really talked about a lot.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me. Man, I love doing this so much.
Absolutely, man. This is a lot of fun, man. I'm going to have you on socials. I'm going to follow you. Let's keep in touch on social. Definitely keep that relationship going. And to the audience, let's talk to you guys now. Thank you. Thank you for making it to the end. Thank you for rocking with Edward and myself all the way. If you guys got value from this, you know what I'm going to ask. Do us a favor. Share this with someone else you think is going to get value too. Make sure you leave a rating to let us know how we're doing. Subscribe to get a new episode each and every single week, because we do this episode for you. And of course, we appreciate all the feedback and the love along the way. As we always say at the end of the episode, guys, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's grow.
Let's impact some today. I think we're gonna do a great job.